Eastern, and then whatever time zone it is where you are in your part of the world. I am thrilled and pleased to have today two very special guests, and together, one is Mr. Jim Stovall. He is an author, and I'll tell you more about him in just a second, but he wrote the book, The Ultimate Gift, and it became a feature film, and Michael O. Sajbel directed the feature film. And both of these gentlemen are incredible. So, in spite of blindness, Jim Stovall has been a national Olympic weightlifting champion, a successful investment broker, the president of the Emmy award-winning narrative television network, a highly sought-after author and platform speaker. And he's authored more than 50 books, including this bestseller, The Ultimate Gift, which is a major motion picture from 20th Century Fox, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And Steve Forbes, the CEO of Forbes magazine, says Jim Stovall is one of the most extraordinary men of our era. He's been chosen as both entrepreneur and humanitarian of the year. Michael Sajbel is a feature film writer, producer, and director whose career has spanned over 3 decades. And he's perhaps best known for The Ultimate Gift, starring James Garner, Brian Dennehy, and Abigail Breslin. Gift is based on the novel by Jim, and Michael has worked in the above capacities or the aforementioned capacities as a director or of photography on over 40 feature films. Let me take that back. He's worked in the foregoing capacities of writer, producer, director, as well as director of photography on over 40 feature films and over 400 television episodes. His most recent film is The Mulligan, is based on the Ken Blanchard and Wally Armstrong book of the same name, and it'll be in theaters this April. So I'm going to bring both Michael and Jim on up. Here is Jim, and here is Michael.
Thank you.
Hello, gentlemen. So, Jim, you're top right next to me. So I'm so glad to have you here. Would you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got involved in doing what you do? Because you do so many things.
Right. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up. But, as a young man, my only ambition was to be an All-American football player and then go into the NFL and make my living playing football on Sundays. And then in a routine physical to go back and play another season of football, I was diagnosed with a condition that would cause me to lose my sight, which I did in my 20s. And then I started a thing called the Narrative Television Network, and we make movies and television accessible to people around the world. And we got an Emmy Award for our first season on national television. And then I was asked to start doing some public speaking as a result of that. And I found myself on the West Coast doing a tour with Dr. Dennis Waitley and Dr. Robert Schuller. And the two of them really twisted my arm to write a book. So I wrote a book called You Don't Have to Be Blind to See, which was my journey of losing my sight and building the television network and becoming an Olympic weightlifting champion and all those things. And it sold well enough, and the publishers wanted another book and another book. And after I'd written 6 books of how-to and celebrity books and different things I had written everything I knew and a few things I only suspected. So when the publishers came back and said, we want another book, I figured I better make up a story, and I made up The Ultimate Gift.
Wow. I mean, that's awesome. And I'm, I got to tell you, and I mentioned it behind before we started, that I just watched The Ultimate Gift again today. It's on Amazon Prime. It may also be elsewhere, but I watched it today again. I have seen it before, and I'm very touched, very moved. You have me weeping in places, both you guys, and it's truly, I love it. I mean, I love. I don't want to give any spoilers away, but it's a remarkable movie about transformation that occurs in not only the life of one person, but in the life of many people as a result of what goes on. Let me ask Michael the same question. Michael and I know each other and are from the same hometown, oddly enough. He'll tell you what that is. But Michael is a wonderful filmmaker and a really good guy and a friend too. And so, Michael, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm back in Wisconsin right now, enjoying seeing Jim again for the first time in many years, probably since we worked on the project together. And it's I'm not going to give away the exact hometown right now. Maybe that's one of those things that'll keep people watching this show till the end, for that big surprise. But I've just completed a memoir of what it's like to grow up in that town, and it has a very positive. It's kind of a love letter to the city, if you can call it a city, if it's that big. And Rex and I, long after getting to know each other, only then discovered that we were from this same town. And it was like unbelievable. Your dad was an eye doctor?
My dad and my mom were both eye doctors, optometrists, yeah.
And my dad was an architect there. So your parents got to see, and your parents' patients got to see my dad's wonderful work.
Yeah. It's truly a small world. And here we are all together. Yeah. Let's begin. Thank you for that. But when you said you were writing a memoir, I thought you were kidding, but you actually have written a memoir.
It's being proofread right now.
Wow!
It'll be at the Yankee bookstore in Wausau, Wisconsin. If that tells you anything.
They're proofing it?
No, they're not. Oh. They're going to write the foreword.
Oh.
They don't know that yet.
So the years I spent in that place, every day I went in there. It was a gift, in a small town, Jim. There was this bookstore, and they were like before all the big bestsellers like Barnes and Noble and all that stuff. This was the local bookstore, and if you needed anything, they'd order it. And just as a kid, going to that bookstore was an amazing experience.
Well, that's what this is all about. This is about the little bookstore. There's the guy on 3rd Street that sells the popcorn.
Popcorn Man.
That? Yeah, that guy, and Bob's Musical Aisle, and all that other great stuff. So
all the great stuff.
Yeah.
So very cool. So Jim, you have accomplished so much, and you have, like I said, Steve Forbes said, you're not only a humanitarian and an entrepreneur, but I mean accolades in that regard. What is your philosophy, or how do your what guides you in living, the principles that you live by that allows you to do so much, and then also to script something like, or to write something like The Ultimate Gift?
Well, I believe this life we've been given is a gift, and our mission in this life is to find what we do well, find our gift, find that special talent, that calling, that thing we have, and then we achieve meaning when we give our gift away. Wow. Just finding what you're good at doesn't matter. But when you can find it and create value in the lives of other people, then you start living what I believe is the ultimate gift.
Well, that is a remarkable point, because a lot of people are good at things, but they could be, narcissistic, selfish people who do nothing for anybody else. But those who discover their gift and give it away and help improve the world is, hearing you say that in that regard makes the movie even that much more meaningful. So, I really hope that the audience will go take the time to go read the book and see the movie. Again, and Michael, you're a positive guy. You're a guy who I've known always good, seems to have a wonderful outlook on life. What about you? What do you say that and especially in bringing it to the picture, your background?
Well, I'm a person of faith, and in Judeo-Christian faith, but The Ultimate Gift is not a faith-based film. In fact, if you might even say it's secular. However, there are elements in it, just as there were in Spielberg's film Amistad and other great motion pictures. I mean, to deny that part of our life is, to deny part of ourselves. And so, when the film came out, it was released by Fox under one of their subsidiary labels that they were trying out for the first time, or the second time maybe, Fox Faith. And I think that may have scared some people away, at least the theatrical part, because Fox Faith didn't necessarily mean religious values. It meant, family values, that type of thing. And I don't mean moral majority type stuff. I mean, really, you're not going to get stuff thrown in your face and that type of thing. And the film really was a slow burn of it came out in like 2006 or so, or 2007, somewhere in there, and it didn't do well theatrically because of possibly marketing. But then it took off in the DVD and video world. My gosh, it did $20 million in the first month or so, and then it kept going. And in 2009 and 2010, it was Walmart's #1 family drama. I mean, and now here we are, 15 years later, something like that, and it's on the top menu line of Amazon Prime. So it's a film that just it didn't have one of those $100 million opening weekends. In fact, you can take a couple of decimals off of that, but it did eventually find an audience and has a huge fan base, and so I'm very grateful for that.
Well, it's a charming film, and I think it's right of both of you to say that it's not necessarily a faith-based film. I mean, to me, one, it doesn't preach anything, but there's a message in it that is revealed through the actions of the characters and through the through the storyline and through the discoveries that the characters make. But there's nothing that hits you in the face with any kind of like, here's a message movie. It's very charming in that regard.
Well, I would like to speak to that. Jim wrote a book that had a grandfather giving a video will. I don't know. Did we invent that for the movie, or did he give the will? Was it read in the book?
No, it was actually the video was in the book.
Okay, great. Well, it's a really great thing. And so it was, if you do these gifts, if you accomplish these 12 gifts, you'll receive the ultimate gift. And that was a wonderful thing to run with, based on Jim's invention. No matter what we did to the screenplay, the bedrock, foundation, the skeleton, the exoskeleton was from the book and the character. And it really was an absolute pleasure to read the book and mark it up and say, yeah, this has got to be in the movie. So I'm very, very pleased about that, how we came about that.
And what say you, Jim?
Well, I never wanted to exclude anyone with the book. And I have heard from, rabbis and clerics read the book, watch the movie. But the thing that also really makes me feel good is there are actually several thousand public schools that use the book and the movie as part of their curriculum in different classes. And that's very, very meaningful to me when, you can share values, you can share truths, but you don't have to do it in such a doctrinal way that it would keep that message out of the public schools, because I think that's a really, really important part of what this movie can do.
Well, and as far as the movie goes, I mean, apart from the book, I love the final credits because of what revealed in the final credits. So after you've gone through the experience, you go, "Oh, I get that. Oh, okay." If you hadn't put, a definite thought to it, there's this sort of a reveal in the credits that's really, really wonderful.
Well, go ahead, Jim.
Well, I've always thought of that as the old Perry Mason. The credits are the Della Street moment, because some of his plots that Earl Stanley Gardner wrote were a little complicated for a 1-hour TV show. So at the end, Della would sit in the office with Perry and say, "Well, how did you figure out this? And how did you figure out that?" And he, under the guise of re-explaining it to Della, really explained to all of us at home, okay, that's how that worked. Well, the credits are kind of the same way. In case you missed a couple of these 12 gifts, here they are again in the credits.
Yeah, it was smart. It was very cool. Very, very well done. Let me just take a moment and tell the viewers that if you're watching live, you can ask questions or leave comments. If you're watching from Facebook Live, that is. Otherwise, if you're watching the replay, go ahead and leave comments or likes, and feel free to share and push this conversation out with these two remarkable men. Thank you. So it's very it's almost difficult for me to ask questions because I don't want to give anything away. But it is the journey of a young man, essentially, who's received the gift from a grandfather of having to discover these gifts. I mean, that is the very beginning gift, is the guy puts him through these opportunities when he doesn't want to go through them. He goes, here you go. If you want this, you have to do this, kind of thing. And of course, if that were me at that age, I'd be going, no way, no way. I will say this: there is a scene in there where he's working with fence posting, and the fact that he did any fence posts to me was just remarkable, because I'd have gone, oh heck no, I'm lying down. I don't dig holes, and I can't do fence posts, but he does. And but that's how he learns, right? Is his willingness to as much as he resists things, he somehow at times finds a way of going beyond his resistance.
Well, we took the book, and I just threw it up into the air and had it land in a 3-act structure. There are probably about 8 of the 12 gifts that are actually in the movie, because I felt the other ones were either redundant or too similar in a way to another one. So, and plus we're always battling with amount of time that the movie's going to be on, and we didn't want to go past the 2-hour mark for sure, and we wanted to hold people's interest and all of that. And where the book might have been a little more expositional, Jim, you feel free to comment on this, but like for that scene you're talking about where he has to go to Texas and build a fence, which is of course obviously allegorical as well as anything else. In the book it says you're going to learn the gift of work, and then he has to, but in the movie we have him go there not knowing why he's there, and keeping the mystery alive, keeping the audience guessing as well. And so in the end, when he gets back to the wonderful Bill Cobb, the attorney, played by Bill Cobb, and Lee Merriweather, his executive assistant, he goes, that was it? That was the gift? Work? And so we kind of put him on the same journey of keeping him a little bit aloof or away from the main information. And it really worked well. And
it works as a movie, because I mean, I'm sitting there watching it, the first time as well as the second time, going, okay, what's I mean, once I've seen it once, I know it's coming. But the point is that the movie is engaging, and it does hook you at that level of going, what is the gift? What is he going to learn, and what is he going to do with it? So that's good. Jim, I wanted to ask you. I said this is about this person's overcoming his own resistance to open himself up to the opportunities or the gifts that are before him. Can you speak to that? I mean, that principle in and of itself, of because he does go through such a transformation through each of the different journeys his grandfather puts him on.
Well, I've written over 50 books now, and The Ultimate Gift is by far the easiest book I ever wrote. It basically wrote itself, and I had no plan or no strategy for it. I wrote the book in 5 days in my office, in between my meetings and phone calls at Narrative Television. And I started with the first line of the book, which says, it was my 80th year of life on earth and my 53rd year in the practice of the law, that I was to undertake an odyssey that would change my existence. And I can't read or write or type. I write books I can't read that are turned into movies I can't watch, and that's my life. So the young lady I was dictating to read that back to me, and I thought, okay, who said that and what's he talking about? And it had come about at a time in my life when I'm very close to the people I work with, because I don't leave my home or my office without somebody guiding me everywhere I go in the world. And so I have a special relationship. One of the people that had been with me from the beginning of Narrative Television, 20 years I've been working with her, single mom, and she was diagnosed with terminal cancer and made me the guardian of her preteen daughter. And we spent, the mother and I spent many days together. And she said, when Jessica goes to high school, tell her this. And when she starts college and when she starts dating and when she gets married, make sure she knows this. So the thought of somebody passing along their values when they were no longer there stuck with me. And that's where I came up with the idea for that. And, I thought, okay, I'm going to have a rich kid. I had really not planned on having a billionaire tell this story because most of these values came from my grandfather. And it was a very similar story, but we didn't have any money. Well, I wanted to dispel what I call the big lie in our society. The big lie tells us if I just had enough money, all my problems would go away. And that's obviously not true. So I remember my high school years, I went to a very affluent high school. My family wasn't, but most of the other kids were. And we just were kind of on the edge of the district. So in the summer, none of those guys had to work. And I had a job one summer on a construction crew. And my first job was to build a fence completely around the building site, the construction site. So I'm in Oklahoma where it's 100 degrees and I'm digging post holes in the middle of the summer, which is about like digging in through that. And I remembered that and I thought, what do I want to do with this rich kid? I'm going to make him dig post holes. So that's what I did. And that's where it came from. And then when he was done with that, obviously, okay, he did work. What comes from work? Well, money. But those just built themselves. And I experienced the ultimate gift, much like readers do, or the people who watch the movie Michael made.
Wow, very cool. Now, there have been comments being left, and we have a question, and I'm not sure how you want to answer this question. Is there one gift that is valued more? Or does that give away the
Well, for me, it would be the gift of a day, because we live in a world when it's all said and done, there's a lot said and very little done. And, people have great plans, great goals, great thoughts, great intentions. But if you don't do something, nothing ever happens, nothing ever changes. And, so it really comes down to if you have a good day today, and if you go focus on having a good day, get up in the morning and ask yourself, what would I do right now if I were amazing? Not good, not adequate. What would I do right now if I were amazing? And if you'll have that thought all day, and then do it the next day, pretty soon you've had a good week and a good month and a good year, and you've had a good life. And then the real question is, if we're living our lives properly, what would you do if you only had one day left to live? Well, if we're living our lives the way we should, you'll pretty much do what you did today and what you did the day before that. And that's how we should live our lives, because sooner or later, one of them will be our last day. So if I had to pick one that kind of encompasses or is an umbrella for all the gifts, it would be the gift of a day.
That's really beautiful. I mean, it truly is beautiful. And I love the fact that it's, if you have consecutive days that you create as good days, then before you know it, you got a week, you got half a year, you got a life of good days because you chose to live good days.
The Abigail Breslin character brought that out so well. And one of the things I will be eternally grateful to Mr. Michael Sajbel for is, the character Emily that Abigail played was a fairly minor character in the book. She was a little girl undergoing leukemia treatment, and the chemotherapy caused her to lose her hair, and that's about it. So just someone this rich kid encounters in a park. Well, Michael took that and did just an incredible job. And Abigail, I believe in each generation, there's just a handful of really, really great child actors, and she was certainly one of them. Just an amazing thing. And you got to remember, when I wrote that book, and that was the first movie set I'd ever been on in my life. I mean, and Michael was so gracious and let me hang around and try to stay out of the way. But, anything I'd done with movies before that involved popcorn. I had no idea what I'm doing here. But to watch Michael work with, iconic movie stars like James Garner or Brian Dennehy, and then work with this little 7 or 8 year old girl, is just amazing the way he does that. And I've had 8 of my other novels turned into movies, but always when I work with new people, new directors, Michael's always been the gold standard, and because of the way he works with the other people. It's really amazing because, when you write a book, it's my book. I mean, it's a very solitary thing. I mean, it comes out of my head and it's my book. But once it becomes a movie, it's our movie, and hundreds of people, put their fingerprints on that and work on this, and they make it much better for that if you got a director that can pull it all together. And we always talk about the right side and the left side of the brain, the organizational and the creative. Well, to be a director, I mean, you got to be both. You got to, because you got to be creative and help these actors bring the best out of that into their parts. But you also, all the logistics going on a movie set's unbelievable. And it's close to like a Normandy invasion you're organizing or something, with all these moving parts you got to do, but you still got to be in touch with the creative stuff. And I've yet to find anybody that has equaled that first experience I had with Michael.
Wow. I so appreciate that, Jim. I really do. I do want to say this, that the writer of the film, the credited writer, is the one that brought Emily more to life. And I do want, I mean, I can take credit for a lot that happened after that, but you can't take credit for something you didn't do. And so a writer named Cheryl brought Emily to fruition. And
you made Abigail come to life.
Oh, Abigail Breslin, if I'm sure Rex, your viewers know, was in a film that we hadn't seen yet. It hadn't come out yet, called Little Miss Sunshine. And when Rick Eldridge, our great producer, offered the job to me as director, he had already gone out to another actress who was extraordinarily talented. But I looked her up on IMDb, and because I suspected something, and yeah, she's 5'10" already. I mean, and you get into, if you've seen the film, a relationship between a boy in his early 20s and a teenage girl. The creep factor could come in, and so I said, well, if she's a very talented actress, this girl, if she accepts the role, I'm going to have to make her gothic, all something like that, just to really separate the characters a little more. And everybody freaked out a little bit about that. But that girl couldn't do the show. And so Rick got a hold of Abigail, and she had a choice between our film and a film up in Canada, and I think a horror film. And she chose our film. And Jim, you're absolutely right. She brought it to life, this character, and so much so that she would walk onto the set in the morning having all of her lines down. Her mother was with her. She rehearsed the lines in their hotel room and all that. But I could say, no, I want you to do it a little bit more like this. I want you to play this down. I want you to, I just dealt with her as a director to an actor, and she nailed it every time. And it was just an absolute pleasure. And working with her, and you're right, Jim, absolutely about her.
She was an amazing talent, and I always joked with her. I said, "You're really an adult in a kid suit." I mean, she was so mature in some ways. And then when she finished our film, she went to New York and played Helen Keller in the Miracle Worker on Broadway, and they sent her for a number of weeks to the School for the Blind in New York. And I talked to her when she was up there, and she said, "Jim, I'm learning how to be blind." And she said, "Jim, you don't do it right." And and I said, "Well, I've worked very hard on not doing it right in my life." But she was great. And then they got so much pushback on that Broadway show because some well-meaning but misguided people thought they should have a blind actress play that. And the director of that Broadway show reached out to me and said, "Would you write an op-ed for the New York Times about, your thoughts on Abigail?" And I said, Helen Keller is such an iconic figure to people like me, and what she deserves is the best actress of her generation at this point in her life that can pull this off. And I don't know anybody that can do it quite like Abigail. And she is just was an amazing child actors, now turning into an amazing young lady. The last time I saw her, she was here in Oklahoma working with Meryl Streep and Julia Roberts on August Osage counties. And I went up there and, of course, here's Meryl Streep and Julia Roberts. And I said, see, kid, I told you, you make one movie with me and the career straight to the moon. There you go.
Well, that's we're going to have to take a break in just a second, but I want to say, she's almost scripted, wise beyond her years. She's a very mature voice, but the actress pulls it off. Good guidance and direction stuff, but she's believable, and she's refreshingly understated with everything, in a sense that you buy it. I don't see this. I just watched another movie that's being considered for an Academy Award. The kid is so precocious that I'm kind of like, okay, I got it. It almost sent me in another direction because the kid is so cute and so endearing and so everything. And but she is for me was more true to life. I mean, especially with what she was going through and the way she communicates as this kind of wise child is just truly amazing. And I liked her very much. We're going to come back after a short message from the Los Angeles Tribune, and Sandra had a question that I want to go back and ask about the production. So we'll be right back, gentlemen, in just about 30 seconds.
Welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune page. Here you will find original news programming, exclusive digital events, and shows that are directly from the community. At the Los Angeles Tribune, we believe in giving a voice to the voiceless. We are proud to be the only national brand to empower everyday people to make a difference. Since 1886, our reputation has been built on truth and responsibility. Thank you for watching and making a difference.
For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
And we're back with Mr. Jim Stovall and Mr. Michael Sajbel. I'm going to make a political statement that I'm sure some people will find offensive, and I don't mean to offend, but if you're hiring someone to play a sniper or a killer or a James Bond, you don't actually go out and hire killers and snipers in James Bond. You hire actors that portray that, and sometimes it's lost on people that acting is about portraying things, and acting. So with all due respect to anybody of any other experience, you try and get the best actor for the role.
Absolutely.
I don't think I'm going to step in it too much here, but when I cast, and there's no gun to my head, there's no dictate or mandate. I kind of see a complete rainbow of ethnicity, and I think that adds I hate to say this, but if you get a wonderfully talented, say, Hispanic actor, you've got the Hispanic audience. And I mean, it's crass, right? I mean, you want to balance female and male, you want to balance ethnicities, and I believe that, that certain, you shouldn't cross necessarily ethnic lines, right. In casting, but I love it when a character is open to interpretation for whatever ethnicity and sexual preference or anything like that. And then if they're talented, I think, like Jim said, that best actor for the role and all that. But to keep it diverse keeps it interesting.
Well, when I wrote the book, I had written, Hamilton and Red Stevens. These two guys were lifelong friends, and I wrote this whole story about them. And when Rick Eldridge, the producer, called me and he said, "How would you feel if Hamilton, the lawyer, was an African American?" And I told him I never thought about it one way or the other. I don't think about if he's black, white, left-handed, or has had his appendix out. It really doesn't matter to me. But it was neat when I wrote. I've written 4 books now in the Ultimate Gift series, and there's been 3 films. But when I wrote The Ultimate Journey, I realized, it was the 3rd book in that series, and I realized so much of the best part of the story I left behind. So I have Jason find a diary, And where did the Hamilton and Stevens come from? Well, you know, it's one thing to have a friendship between these elderly black and white men today, but you go back in the 30s and the 40s, that was a different thing. So, you know, having that diversity really brought a lot of interesting layers into the story as it played out, even beyond the ultimate gift.
Well, and the depth of the relationship between the grandfather and Hamilton, it was truly touching, and in the way that it was portrayed in the movie, because the gentleman is dead, so you only have the attorney's side of what the relationship was like, you know. So it was really well done. I hope I'm not stepping on anything. I wanted to go back to Sandra's question, which says, was there anything, Michael, in the production process that surprised you in bringing the book to the screen?
I don't think I was surprised by anything. I just was very, it was just a magical experience. I just come off a huge Bible epic in India where I lost 35 pounds. I was there for 5 months in Rajasthan and working with Omar Sharif and Peter O'Toole and all of that. And to come back and be offered right away a smaller yet a film that I could have more authorship. It's not that Jim didn't have a phenomenal input. The earlier drafts of the script didn't have a phenomenal input. And Rick Eldridge, our producer, is great, very collaborative. I never once went to a monitor and had somebody say, hey, have them do it differently. You know, none of that. It was like a lot of freedom. In fact, okay, so that's the big surprise, that I had a lot of freedom in doing this. And it's interesting that Rick has called me over the years to work on the sequels and to work on other pictures. And it wasn't until 2 years ago that the stars lined up again. And Rick asked me to direct a film called The Mulligan, which is written by another great set of authors instead of a single author, Wally Armstrong and Ken Blanchard, who wrote The 1 Minute Manager, the book The Mulligan. So that'll be in theaters April 18th and 19th only, all over the US coming up. But so Rick and I got to work together again, and Rick was one of the writers this time. So he and I were even more collaborative, and it's just a very enjoyable relationship. I don't tell Rick I'd do another one with him because, you know, my attorney would flip out. But I mean, it's all about money, right? But I'm just kidding. So that was the surprise, is that how beautifully the film turned out and how much I enjoyed doing it.
Well, that's awesome. I want to turn attention to Jim in just a second, but that is in the movie. You know, you said it's freedom to do this movie, and that was one of the things in the movie, the freedom to dream, and the freedom to, in the book as well. But I mean, the freedom to dream and to then pursue your dreams and to be able to to do these things.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. We had James Garner as the grandfather, Red Stevens. That's not a spoiler. And we had him for a very short period of time, and he was reading this video well to camera. But when he came to that point where you just mentioned, here's a gift of a dream, freedom to dream, the executive producer and John Shepard, our producer, and Cleve Landsberg, our line producer, were watching a monitor in the hallway. And when I went out there, they were in tears. It was so beautiful. It was a soliloquy. And unfortunately in the movie, it's played on a little bitty precursor to the iPhone, and it doesn't have quite the emotional punch so if somebody asked me what would you do over, I would have Garner more on the big screen. And if you hear my English bulldog and my Rottweiler fighting in the background, I'm sorry. I'll mute myself when I'm not talking.
It's usually my dogs making noise, so this is to me, it's a gift. No pun intended. Wow. Well, that's very, very cool. I mean, that truly is. But so Jim, with that notion in mind, Michael was talking about the freedom to be creative, and the freedom in the movie is the freedom to dream. And with all of your experience, you're also in the Napoleon Hill movie, the Think and Grow Rich movie that John Shin produced and things like that. Can you speak a little bit about pursuing the dream and making dreams come true? Because you talked about having that perfect day and
yeah. Well, everyone watching us right now, we were all put here for a reason. And when we were teenagers or young adults, we all had that, I'm going to be this, do this, have this. I'm going to change the world. I'm going to go do all these things. And we have these great ambitions. And then somewhere between there and here, we get so busy making a living, we forgot to create a life. And I always like to tell all the people I speak to in arena events, or I have an opportunity to write a book that they read, or they read my syndicated columns. I like to let people know the biggest dream you ever had is alive and well. And the only thing you got to do to activate it is go into that little voting booth in the middle of your soul and think about the biggest, scariest thing you ever wanted to be, and reach up there and vote yes for yourself, because the dream would not have been put inside of you if you didn't have the capacity to achieve it. So the question is never can we, the question is will we? And the world belongs to men and women who will reach out and grab that big dream and make it a reality.
Wow, that is so beautifully stated. That is so wonderful. And I absolutely love it. And I know there's people who are watching, who are in all different walks of business, and have dreams in their everyday life. And that is a powerful message that I hope everyone takes to heart. That very, very beautiful. So the interesting thing about the movie is that the grandfather has the wherewithal to, in the movie, leave these messages, and the way it's put together is there's a message, and then Jason goes off on a kind of a task or a journey to discover something, and then comes back, and if he succeeds, he gets another message, until ultimately he finds the ultimate gift. How did that come about? I mean, did you when you conceived this notion, we were talking about, your grandfather giving you wisdom and things like that. Did you imagine it as the movie unfolds? Because, or was it different in the way you conceived of it, that from how Red passes these learnings on?
That was my first novel I wrote, and obviously the first one turned into a movie. And I never thought about it being a movie at the time. Now, every time I write fiction, I imagine it on a screen. And one of the great things about being blind is I'm not limited to any screen. It's like they used to say in old time radio dramas, the pictures are in your head. And so I can see these things unfolding in my head. But, I have, because of the Ultimate Gift movie, I've had the privilege of going to dozens and dozens, probably several hundred families who will ask me to come in and speak to their family reunion. And these are families of extreme wealth, because, as I always tell them, if you pass along your valuables without passing along your values, it's child abuse. It's like giving a child a loaded gun and without showing them how to use this. This is tragic. And, I'm glad that when I was Jason Stevens' age, somebody didn't hand me millions and millions of dollars, because I would have ruined my life and everybody around me. So I think Red Stevens knew that he had to prepare this young man for, really to manage and steward this money going forward throughout his life. And Red knew he wasn't going to be there.
Wow. Well, I just lost my question. I was very impressed with that answer. I'm actually thrown for coming back with a question at this point. But so switching a little bit of the gears, the other family members kind of exemplify the antithesis of Jason. I mean, the exact thing that you're talking about, the people with guns without learning how to use them. Well, you describe it rather than me. It's the abuse of wealth, I guess you could say, and the abuse of family between each other, and the way that they treat each other because of this monumental wealth that they could be inheriting.
Yeah, the money didn't enable them to do anything but gratify themselves, and it really ruined their lives. I think Buffett may have said it best. He said, "I want to leave my kids enough money where they can do anything, but I don't want to leave them so much where they can do nothing." And that's what happened. And Michael did such a great job. I was on the set the day that they had this really wonderful argument around the Thanksgiving table with these greedy, selfish family members. And it was almost fun. One thing I learned that day is it takes a long time to shoot a 2 or 3 minute scene in a movie. And I made up my note to self, I made that day, if I'm ever in another movie where there's a meal going on, I'm going to be eating something I like at that moment, because you're going to have to eat a lot of it throughout the shooting, because every time they say cut and start over, they'd reset everybody's plates and they have to eat it again. But that's just such a great scene with the family, and you realize that nothing matters to them other than the money, and nothing has ruined their life more than the money. And so it's a great scene.
I went down. In preparing for that scene, Jim and Rex, I went down to a Toys R Us and I bought little bitty figures and I put names on them and I put them around the table. Now this person says this to this person and this person says this to this person, and I kept reseating them, and I knew that the oldest brother would be at the head of the table, and it's obviously it's called blocking. But when we got on the set, I could say to the actors, that's your spot, that's your spot, that's your spot. And normally you let actors feel their way out. Oh, I want to be over by the window, I want to do this. No, this is going to be a long, complex scene. We don't have a million years to shoot it and all of that. And so I felt, and I had all the camera angles already picked out. So it went really well. And that's with planning, Jim. So you can imagine the chaos if we hadn't assigned seating or anything like that.
Well, it was brilliant for that scene because everybody has to sit here no matter where you want to sit. Well, these are people, they didn't want to be at this Thanksgiving dinner anyway. So, it's a great scene with just a whole lot of people that would rather be anywhere else doing anything else.
And they're all delightfully despicable.
Yeah.
They fulfilled their obligations to their characters because they do come off really nasty. So.
And there's a little bit of transformation in Jason at that scene, the grandson, because he realizes this now. He's transforming from where he used to be one of those people, and now he's kind of fed up. And it was part of his transformation. It's part of his arc, as they say.
Yeah, because he shows up very different when he shows up in the movie. Not the nicest of guys, and not the person who cares most about the circumstances that he finds himself in. When you're introduced to his character. So wow, very, very cool. Let's just take a moment also to talk about some of these other things. So Jim, and we'll talk about the movie with Mr. Blanchard and. Armstrong? Did you say Wally Armstrong?
Wally Armstrong, yeah, he's a golf professional,
right?
And
yeah. But I wanted to ask you, Jim and I think you do too, Michael. We share a friend in the director of the show, The Chosen, and your company has been doing the narrative for that series, correct? And that series is, I think, it's the #1 all-time ever. Like Kickstarter champion. They raised $10 million in a crowdfund for this TV series, and you're involved with doing the script for the blind, the narration for the blind.
Yeah.
I've only seen a couple of episodes, but Dallas Jenkins is a friend. He's a really good guy and a good director. But that show is very, very charming. It's a wonderful show. Whether you believe it or don't believe it, it has nothing to, I don't want to say anything about anybody, but it's just a really well done show. So
I mean, people that you've heard about in church or Sunday school come to life as real people, and it's a chance for people to experience things that are in the scriptures as they would have if they had been there during the first century. It's a wonderful piece of work.
It really is. It is, and there's a humor to it. They have not just a humor to it, but there's a sense of humor in the scenes sometimes. I mean, the modern day music that they play is not what you would expect from this kind of project. So it works together very marvelously. So I'm very pleased. So Michael, and I want you to talk about other things in just a moment, Jim. But Michael, with this new movie, The Mulligan, and that has Pat Boone in it, correct? Is that?
Yes. The book was actually the book was written a few years ago, and actually I think went out of print. But it was a book that people exchanged and kept reordering, and with it's a story of a guy who's successful in everything but life, and he goes to a pro-am golf tournament and completely mucks it up. Ending with a guy recommending that he visits the old pro. So we needed an older guy, a ex-professional golfer, and we ended up casting Pat Boone, who fit the bill, the look. At 87 years old, memorizes up to 6 pages a day, and brings it. So very happy with that.
That's very cool. That's awesome. There's some feedback going on. It just says that either an internet artifact or something. I don't know if you can hear it where you are. Yeah, it must be something with the internet. But and so Jim, you're doing these another movie too now. Is that what you said?
Yeah, we're working on a film right now called Will to Win, and it's the third and they all take place at modern day high schools, but the namesake of the school gets involved in the story with the kids. And the first one was Harry Truman, and it's called One Season of Hope. And then I wrote one called Top of the Hill about Napoleon Hill. And this one is Will to Win about Will Rogers. And I'm really excited about it. It's the first project the Will Rogers family's gotten involved with since Will Rogers Follies played on Broadway. And the Cherokee tribe is getting involved, and they've been great. And because Will Rogers was a full-blooded Cherokee. So we're having just a lot of fun with it. And it is fun to write things to get turned into movies. And it's a blessing because, I have 10 million books in print among all my titles, but that is dwarfed by the number of people that are impacted by a movie like what Michael does. And I am very grateful when people can take my little story and turn it into something worthy of being on movie screens around the world.
Well, one of the things that you said that I really appreciate and love is, I wrote the book without any idea of it becoming a movie. And now I write with them all with the idea of becoming a movie. What was it like for you when you now have written a book and suddenly, it's like we could turn this into a movie? And then not only that moment where you're going from author to an author whose book is being made into a movie, but then when the movie comes out to have that finished product, got to be a remarkable.
Yeah, it kind of comes full circle. People only wanted me to write. People wanted me to speak because I created narrative television, and out of that I started writing books, and then we made a movie, and the next thing I know, my movies come back to our studios and we're narrating for 13 million blind and visually impaired people. So it's an amazing experience. I remember the last time I saw Michael Sajbel in person, we had gone to a premiere, and the next morning, Crystal and I get up and we get on the plane to fly back, and Michael's on our flight, and some of the financial backers of the movies, they bought a full page ad in the USA Today that morning. Well, the flight attendant came over and asked if I would sign that page. Well, I don't know if Michael told her or somebody else did, but anyway, I did. But I said, well, the director's right there. Michael was like 2 rows behind us across the aisle. And I told her he directed this film. Well, she said, well, what else has he done? And so that really tall, hairy guy, the Wookiee, and take a look at him. That's him right there. And so somewhere there's a flight attendant that thinks she met the Wookiee from Star Wars.
I so appreciate that.
That's awesome.
It's you, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
I'm a firm believer that, people are here, they always say things happen for a reason, but I think people happen to each other for a reason. And people connect, and you kind of meet the people that you're supposed to meet in the world. And if there is no divine providence regarding that, you end up meeting the people you're supposed to meet anyway, so, I mean, it's truly an amazingly small world. And the fact that we're here together talking about a movie that both of you are involved in, and Michael and I are from the same hometown, and, that kind of thing. Another little tidbit is Pat Boone is the father-in-law of one of my oldest and dearest friends. I grew up with these people as a teenager. I haven't seen Pat in 40 years, but, his Debbie and Gabrielle and Miguel Ferrer and the whole Ferrer family, have been friends of mine forever. So, it's just kind of the circle always gets a little tighter, as we move through the world and find out what each and every one of us is doing. I say that because I'm always delighted when things like this happen, but it happens for everybody. If people just look around them and realize the number of wonderful connections they have in their life from that. I the other day, Michael, we were talking about. Suddenly I'm doing Zooms with people that I haven't seen in 40 years or 50 years actually. And it's just really an amazing thing. And you have had the opportunity to bring so much meaning, both of you guys, in terms of your work, in terms of the movies and the books and the different businesses, of bringing so much meaning to so many people in the world. And to be able to share that gift is I just think an amazing, incredible thing. And I'm happy to be here, just kind of like a fly on the wall, to be a little bit of a part of that. That's truly wonderful.
Well, if your role is of a Johnny Carson, and Jim and I are on, we say, go to Amazon Prime and watch The Ultimate Gift. And April 18th and 19th, go to the theaters and see The Mulligan.
And Jim, you also have, other things. I mean,
I have a couple of books coming out. One this spring called The Art of Entrepreneurship, and then a new novel called Passport, and then the Will to Win movie. Hopefully in 23 sometime you'll see that one.
Wow. Well, I got to say it's good to be with both of you. You're both prolific in so many different ways, and I'm just pleased. I'm honored, and I'm humbled to be here with you. And I hope that everybody who's watching the show live or in replay will leave comments. Don't just like it, just leave comments, interact, and then share, because you will reach people that I can't reach in the same way that the movies have had, an effect of reaching people that a book might not reach. So go ahead and share it and refer it. Go to Amazon Prime and watch the movie. I think it might also be on YouTube. I saw something and I could be wrong, because YouTube has a feature, open feature channel. So it might be there as well, because when I was looking for it earlier, it popped up, but I went and watched it on Amazon Prime. So give yourself a gift and watch The Ultimate Gift by Jim Stovall and Michael Sajbel. Gentlemen, it has been an honor to have you here. I'm going to ask that you hang out for a little bit in the green room while I close out the show. But before I close, I want to ask if there's any parting thought that you'd like to leave with our audience members, and whoever would like to jump in first, go for it.
Well, it was an honor to work
Grateful
with Jim.
to be on with the 2 Wisconsin cheeseheads, and one that lets me talk about my work, and one that brought my work to life on a big screen, and I am grateful to both of you.
I think that's the first time I've been called a cheesehead, so I appreciate that with much love and with with kind regards. It's beautiful. All right, gentlemen. So with that, I want to say goodbye, and we'll be meeting up in just a moment. But thank you so much for your time here today. It's been truly, truly wonderful. And so, Michael, we'll see you in a little bit, and Jim, we'll see you in just a little bit. And with that, I am so glad to have been here and to be able to discuss this movie. And please do share it with other people. And please do go see the movie. You'll be glad that you did. It has, so many wonderful messages that, like I said, they're not messages that are delivered as a message, like a message movie. They're gifts. And so go enjoy the movie. With that, I need to tell you a couple of things. One, we've got the Ultimate NLP home study course going right now. And if people are interested in that, you can go to my website, rexsikes.com. And then my book is Life on Your Terms. And the book is available at rexsikes.com/. Every week, I get to share a little bit about what I'm doing with people. And so if you're curious, go to the website that you see here. Also, you will have to do it in the comments. We didn't have Michael or Jim's websites up, so we'll have to leave that in the comments and make that available for you. Oh, thank you, Lynn. Thank you. And with that in mind, as I always say, next week, by the way, we have Lydia Cornell, actress Lydia Cornell. She's been a TV star for many, many years, and she's a delight. She's a champion for so many different wonderful causes. And we're going to have her on next Thursday, same time, 3 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern, and wherever it is in your locale. So tune in then, share the shows. And until then, if you consider everything a blessing, remember everything then is a blessing. And with that, celebrate everything and have a great day.